Now Israel has done every one of those things, but times 60. So don't tell me that Israel is more moral. I would argue they are more immoral. And especially when you're Goliath, you have a responsibility to tread a little bit more carefully. And Israel has done the exact opposite.
Cenk Uygur went on Dr. Phil's podcast, the Dr. Phil podcast, to talk with Dr. Phil, to have a conversation, to have a debate. One of the major topics that they talked about is the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. So we're going to take a look at clips of Dr. Phil and Cenk Uygur. I have thoughts to share on this as well. No matter what you feel about Cenk Uygur, I think he's excellent in debates like this with, let's face it, now Dr. Phil is a MAGA right-winger. Let's take a look at this together.
Nobody ever talks about the whole context of the situation. So the reality is that 5.5 million Palestinians have been occupied by Israel for 57 long years. And so no one would tolerate being occupied at all, let alone for 57 years. And the analogy I often use is Texas. So if somebody came and occupied Texas, do you think Texas might fight back? Do you think the citizens might fight back? And especially if you took away any opportunity to do it in a legitimate way, do you think maybe an insurgency would rise that others would call terrorism, right? So now that doesn't justify the terrorism, but it just explains to you how we got here. So 57 years, so then Hamas does something terrible in return, okay? And then Israel goes, oh, you want to see terrible? We'll show you terrible, and levels the whole place. So, but what Israel doesn't understand is that they are Goliath. For all of Jewish history, they have been David, and they have been abused, and they have been traumatized, and I don't know people that have suffered more, right? But they're misunderstanding the current situation. They're no longer David. They're Goliath, plus they've got even bigger Goliath behind them. And they're beating up on these folks when they got to let them go.
Okay, but you just said a really important word. You just said but.
Mm-hmm.
You just said for all of this time, they have been David. But that means forget everything I just said. I'm going to now tell you what I really mean.
No, it doesn't.
Now they're Goliath.
No, it just means the situation has changed.
It has changed. I'm saying you can't forget all of that time. And I don't want to get into a yeah, but. The situation is complex, and the Palestinians have been offered peace accords and all different kinds of opportunities to change this occupation circumstance time and time and time again. We can go back and forth about that. My point is that there is no moral equivalent to what happened on October 7th.
I actually totally disagree. I think what Israel has done since is far, far worse, and it's empirical. So they've killed 62,000 now. Hamas killed 1,200. My heart breaks for that 1,200. There was kids in there. There was terrible things that were done in there. Now Israel has done every one of those things, but times 60. So don't tell me that Israel is more moral. I would argue they are more immoral. And especially when you're Goliath, you have a responsibility to tread a little bit more carefully. And Israel has done the exact opposite. And remember, they're the ones who started it by occupying them in the first place. There's not a single Texan that would ever tolerate what Israel has done to the Palestinians.
Now, there's two things here that I would totally disagree with Dr. Phil on. One, where Cenk Uygur is saying that Israel is Goliath now when they were once David. And Cenk Uygur is completely right about that. But Dr. Phil pushes back on that. And in my opinion, you can't do that. You have to look at what is happening right now in terms of the unbalance of power in this war, in this conflict. You know, there was a time when the United States, prior to World War II, the United States wasn't a superpower, but the United States sort of got dragged into World War II. The United States was an isolationist country mostly at the time. The United States was attacked, got dragged into World War II, and then came out of that into the 1950s and beyond as the world superpower. England used to be a huge empire, and now they're just another country. So you can't look at necessarily what happened in the past in terms of what is happening right now. And the moral equivalency that Dr. Phil is saying here, that would be my second point. And Cenk Uygur talks about, this was a while back, but the numbers are even higher now, that when Israel has killed 60 times what Hamas has killed, and That's not taking anything away from those lives that were lost, Israeli lives that were lost. But it's kind of like the United States after 9/11. A few thousand Americans died, but then depending on what numbers you look at, the United States killed anywhere from 100,000 to 1,000,000 people in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's disproportionate. There's not a moral equivalency there. And one thing that I've never really heard anyone from Israel say is, how does this end? When is the end of this? If there's one Hamas person left in Gaza, do they wipe out everybody there to get to that one person? At what point do they say, okay, this is enough, when it's so disproportionate in the amount of lives lost?
We could go over the number of times that Israel has been attacked. And when you say that they have done the same or worse, I don't know of an aggressor that has gone to the lengths that Israel has gone to, dropping leaflets, warning people, get out of this area, get out of this area, get out of this area, because we're coming after the aggressors. To me, they have gone to extreme lengths to try and protect civilian life. But if you have people that come across and assassinate women, children, and infants in their cribs, and then run back and hide in populous areas, schools, hospitals, and tunnels, and say, well, I'm now in a neighborhood, so you can't come after me, that's violating the rules of war. That's violating every possible measure of warfare that you can possibly do. You can't do that and expect, okay, so I get away with it. That's not going to happen.
Okay, so you're turning me back into the warrior, Cenk. Okay, but let me try to handle it a different way. Can I get you to see it from the other perspective? Okay, so I hear what you're saying about the Israeli perspective. Well, these guys hit me. What do you want me to do? And I have a literal answer to that. I was asked, on October 8th or whenever I went on the first show afterwards, I said, yeah, you should use special forces like we did to get bin Laden. Is it riskier? Of course it is. But as Goliath, you have a responsibility, but you're still going after them. So there are real ways you could do military, you could do economic, you could do diplomatic. Israel has infinite power over the Palestinians. They control their lives completely and utterly. They could kill them at any moment, and they do. And the things that you described, they don't do that anymore at all. They're using an AI program called Where's Daddy? They have no idea if it's the right guy, but they wait till he gets home so that they kill his family with him. It's disgusting and deeply immoral. I think they're a terrorist state, and I think they do terrorism far worse than anything I've seen from the Palestinians.
Now, Dr. Phil talks about supposedly Israel doing all these things to try to warn of bombings and attacks and all of that. And then we see news reports of hospitals being wiped out, aid workers being killed. Cenk Uygur talks about them being a terrorist state, which Dr. Phil isn't going to like that, or any MAGA supporter isn't going to like that. But what we're seeing, and what we've seen for the last more than a year, as Cenk Uygur eloquently points out, is Goliath taking out David, just in terms of the size and power and scope. And Israel has the full support of the United States and has received $3 billion a year for a long, long time, totaling more than $300 billion. So it's not a fair fight, no matter what Dr. Phil might say.
Now, having said all that, okay, so I'm a bad guy. If you're from Israel's perspective, you go, I don't like that. He's saying mean things about us, and we got every right to occupy these people and keep them as our slaves for 57 long, brutal years, and I'll do it for 500 more years because I'm superior to them. That's how I view Israel. And so I'm not a friend. I'm not like in the sense of what they're doing today. My God, they do a peace deal. I love Israel. Let's go together. And I want it to be beautiful, safe haven for Jews. They deserve it, etc. But can I get you to see the Palestinian perspective? How long do you want me to be occupied? How long do you want me to live under the thumb of a different people? How long would you accept that? What would you do that was different? And they've tried everything. They've gone to the UN, just like Israel did, rebuffed. They've tried diplomacy, rebuffed. They try everything, rebuffed, because Israel has infinite power because it controls America.
I can look at it from Palestinians' point of view, and I hate the loss of life in Palestine. I absolutely hate the loss of life in Palestine. I think when Hamas made the attack they did on October 7th, they put a sequence of events into play that they knew was going to happen. They don't value life, they value death. And I think they put all of those people in harm's way. They knew what they were doing when they did it. They're responsible for what's happening in Gaza Strip when they did what they did. They knew what was going to happen when they did it. So it's happening. And now this peace accord, will it hold? Netanyahu is, I suppose, skeptical of it when you're dealing with people in power whose prime directive is you be dead. It's hard to negotiate with people who are oriented to wipe you off the face of the earth. From the river to the sea, you can spin that any way you want, but that is what it is.
It's so hard not to get frustrated. I'm trying to make peace here, but Dr. Phil, look, last things on this. Number one, Netanyahu has said from the river to the sea. So don't tell me that you don't like from the river to the sea when your prime minister says it. Number two, he's actually doing river to the sea, and they're going to take Gaza, and they're going to try to take the West Bank. Number three, they've now killed 60 times the number of civilians. So how could killing 60 times the number of civilians be more morally correct than killing one time? It just doesn't make any sense. But America's only looking at it from the Israeli perspective. Oh my God, what would you do if you were attacked? Okay, but I'm asking you, what would you do if another race, country, religion, government was oppressing you for 57 years? They have to go to checkpoints. They get humiliated at every checkpoint. They have no rights at all. The settlers have killed 1,000 people in the West Bank. Nothing to do with the Gaza Strip, nothing to do with Hamas. Hamas is not in charge of the West Bank. They kill, oppress, humiliate, and then they go, I can't believe you're mad about it. Oh my God, I can't give you freedom because you don't like Israel. How were they supposed to like Israel? At what point would they have liked Israel?
And Dr. Phil, he tries to play a little bit with, I feel for the people of Gaza, but it's still this black and white narrative of you have to support Israel no matter what they do. You can't criticize Israel. And the thing that I don't understand is, okay, if Hamas doesn't play fair and they use human shields or whatever, again, you just say, well, we just have to wipe everybody out because they use human shields. What else can we do? Again, you can't use some kind of different technique, as Cenk Uygur mentions here, do like what the United States did with bin Laden and send special forces in to take these guys out. It just, the argument of they're using human shields or they're hiding in schools or hospitals or whatever the supporters of Israel say. So you kill all of those innocent people to get to Hamas. It just makes no sense to me. And I completely agree with Cenk Uygur here. Again, I don't want loss of life on either side, but it does not seem that Netanyahu and his government have any interest in actually negotiating. But let me know what you think about all of this. What do you think about this debate between Dr. Phil and Cenk Uygur? Are you on Dr. Phil's side? Or are you on Cenk Uygur's side? Even if you're somebody on the left who you're not super happy with Cenk Uygur anymore. I've been a fan for a long time, but some of his views right now I'm not happy with. But I think his view on Israel and Gaza has been consistent and correct. But let me know what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.